Between the years 1800 and 1850, the native Māori population of New Zealand dropped by an estimated 40%, marking one of the most rapid demographic collapses in the Pacific. Despite occurring during the peak of global imperialism, no European soldier fought in this conflict. This was an internal war, fought between indigenous tribes on their own terms. The tragedy was the result of a lethal, indirect collision of cultures. It was an apocalypse driven by the arrival of foreign goods into a society that had lived in isolation for 500 years. New Zealand's experience illustrates how the tools of the industrial world can destabilize a culture long before a colonial government even establishes a footprint on the shore. The Maori settled these remote islands in the 13th century. They developed a complex society that prioritized a specific, warrior-based social structure. Central to this structure was mana, a combination of status, authority, and ancestral power. Protecting or increasing one's mana was the primary justification for tribal conflict. For centuries, these wars were fought with Stone Age clubs and wooden staffs. The battles were strictly ritualized and typically resulted in very few casualties, as the goal was often to settle a specific slight rather than to annihilate an enemy. This balance shifted in the late 18th century. European whalers and sealers began using New Zealand as a supply stop, bringing an end to the archipelago's isolation. Maori chiefs began trading flax and fresh water for metal tools, and eventually flintlock muskets. Introducing industrial firearms into a status-driven warrior culture created a new and lethal set of incentives that the islands were not prepared to contain. The transition to gunpowder was not immediate. In the first recorded musket battle in 1808, the tribe using the new weapons was actually defeated by warriors using traditional tactics. While the weapons were initially unreliable, Chief Hongi Hika recognized their potential. He spent the next decade masterminding a way to bring his tribe into global trade. Hika encouraged Christian missionaries to settle on his lands. He provided them protection because their presence acted as a beacon, ensuring more European trade ships would dock in his territory rather than with his rivals. In 1820, Hika traveled all the way to London to meet King George IV. After receiving a collection of royal gifts, he traveled to Sydney and traded the king's property for a massive cache of muskets. By exploiting these international trade routes, Hika secured a level of firepower that allowed his tribe to dominate the traditional rivalries of the Northern Islands. Along with muskets, European ships introduced these high-yield potatoes. They provided the caloric fuel and shelf life necessary for Maori armies to stay in the field for months at a time. This created an engine of escalation. Tribes with muskets achieved quick victories, capturing thousands of prisoners. These captives farmed potatoes, producing a food surplus to support larger armies. This surplus was traded back for more muskets, closing a deadly cycle of arming and farming. Once every tribe acquired muskets to defend themselves, the advantage of a quick victory disappeared. The result was a state of total war that depopulated entire regions and nearly exterminated pacifist groups like the Māori. Historians often refer to this as the Great Potato War, because the logistical ability to feed an army proved just as deadly as the weapons themselves. This graph illustrates the scale of the aftermath. By the 1830s, the combination of constant warfare and foreign diseases had reduced the indigenous population by nearly half. Years of constant raiding shattered traditional tribal boundaries. Families fled their ancestral lands, leaving vast areas of the country empty and undefended. When large-scale European immigration began in the 1840s, settlers moved into the voids left by the Musket Wars. This set the stage for the New Zealand land wars that would follow for the next 30 years. History is often treated as if it begins when colonial powers arrive to keep written records. This ignores the decades of complex technological transformation that happened before the first administrators arrived. By studying oral histories and the mechanics of the Musket Wars, we can better understand the consequences that occur when an ancient culture is suddenly forced to integrate with the global industrial machine.